Well, it's strange. Today is my mother's birthday. So, and I told you that she was really the essence and cause of my vocation. And I had a very loving father. He was firm, but he was very loving, and a loving mother, of course. And lived in the West End on Ormsby Avenue, went to St. George Catholic school, and I had a wonderful education. I had all sisters, and I could name all the sisters I had. And my parents sacrificed very much for my education, especially my music. And I told you I started at 25 cents, and then it went to 75 cents when I went to the sisters. You know, I had to go all the way up on Maple Street, and I walked pretty far from Ormsby Avenue. And I took from a lay person. I used to practice. We didn't have a piano. I practiced on a cardboard keyboard in the dining room table. And I'd go up once a week to a neighbor, and she had a piano, so I'd play on the real piano. And then finally, my parents were able to buy a piano for me, and they got it for $15. And they had to pay on the installment plan. $15 was a lot of money. And it was an upright, a beautiful upright, and it was a player piano. And I practiced, and it was in our living room. And during the winter, I could only go in certain nights. My dad would make a fire in the grate so I wouldn't be cold, and I'd have my coat on, practicing, you know. And then I told you in high school, my sister Bernadine, I had her, and then the girls pitched in for me to have a recital at Memorial. I memorized 7 pieces, and then 2 other girls had 1 piece to give me a break. And they were friends, Michael Keneally, Keneally and, well, one went to be a Benedictine later, and one went to be a Zavian brother, and was a Benedictine brother. And they saw me, they said, "Oh, do you play music?" I said, "Yeah, a little bit." And I was coming from Memorial Auditorium. They were coming from St. X, and I was at 4th and Oak. And so then they saw it in the newspaper, the write-up, and then they came to the recital. And then they brought me home. Sir, Laurentia, she loaned me her saxophone and taught me. And then on Fridays, to give me the opportunity of playing with a band, I would go to Ursuline Academy when I was in the 8th grade. And every Friday I would go there and practice with the band. And then when I was in high school, I had 4 more years of band. So I played 5 years in their band. And it was a wonderful band. And Irene Bielke, she was one of our associates. She played a trombone, and she sat beside me. And I loved there were 4 girls from St. Leo's, and I loved those girls. They were so nice. But she hit her trombone, and she hit my seat because I was right in front of her. The saxophones were. They took up a collection to rent Memorial Auditorium. Yes. And I didn't know that was going on, see. Sister just said that we were going to practice there. So I had to go several days to get used to the piano because it was a baby grand, and the touch was different. And so I would go and practice, and they would always, the man would open up the building so I could get in, you know. Things were safer then. We played at St. George's. I played in a band there, and then Father Pank developed a band, and we used to go to his house, his mother's house, William Pank, who everybody was afraid of. And then he started having us go down to Holy Cross Rectory, where he was stationed. And we'd go down on the bus, a couple of us, and then he'd stand on the corner with us to see that we got on the bus safely, because it was dark by the time we got finished. And he'd pray the rosary. He'd say, answer the rosary, answer the He had a heart as big as gold, you know. He had a big heart. The parish was actually the hub of any recreation that we had. The priest saw that we had that. It was interesting. I saw something in Facebook the other day about Father Moore. Well, I know James Martin died, and he was my classmate. And it said that Father Moore called him Smudge. And I said, hey, Mary, that's my classmate. And I got it, all the information, read it. And but he got us together. That was how they, you know, partnered us. And then we would dance together. And of course, when I was playing in the band, I couldn't dance. But I enjoyed that very much, you know, playing my saxophone. And then right before I came to the convent, I was invited to play in a jazz band with cute little outfits. Mom said, you think you should do that? I said, nope, I don't think so. So I didn't go for that. It was a lot of fun, you know, playing with them a couple times. I wanted to be a teacher in school. I loved math, and I loved English, and I wasn't a very good reader, but I took, when I came to the model school, I didn't have enough to do, so Sister Consuela was our librarian, and I took children's lit from her and got my certificate as a librarian. And they used my certificate at the model school, you know, in case the people came. They used it, you know how they would come and visit the school. We used to go over every night, and it was a new library, and I knew how to do the books, you know, and I taught the sisters what to do, because Consuela taught me what to do. So they used my librarian certification for that. And I love children's lit. Created something new in me. I have the master's at Notre Dame is in music. Loyola, I got my master's in religious ed. That was because we were at St. Mary's teaching religion, and Mary Lavinia said, you have to be educated to teach. You know, I had taken all the courses they gave you in Louisville, but she said, no, it needs to be higher than that. 6 summers each place. I used to go to Notre Dame. I had not finished my bachelor's before I started my master's. So I had to take English Lit from somebody in Evanston, Illinois, and I was at St. Mary's in Jackson, Mississippi, so I had to study and read, write reports and send it to her, and then she'd send it back. And I remember having to read Moby Dick. And I was looking for all these little cliff notes. I couldn't find one. I had to get that big book and read that whole thing. And every time I hear Moby Dick on there, I nearly go, burp. Then I finally got my degree, but by that time it was Ursuline Bellarmine. So I still get magazines from Bellarmine, and Mary graduated and she doesn't get any. I never stepped my foot in Bellarmine. I don't even know where the place is. And as a tribute to our Ursuline sisters, I had Sister Marie and Sister Ida. And Sister Marie taught theory. And at Notre Dame, I had Dr. Biondo for theory. And he said, who was your teacher? One day he came to the desk and I told him, he said, you had a wonderful teacher. He said, because you are far superior to the people in this group. And I was so shocked, and I told little Sister Marie that, and she was so happy. She had so many funny things. She'd tell cute little stories. Ada was just the opposite. I took piano from her. She was real serious. But they complemented one another very well. So I was forever grateful to her. When I started teaching, I was sent to places where they had bands. My very first year, I forgot to tell you that, I was with Sister Gonda. And Sister Gonda at St. Francis of Assisi, and she had a band, and she used me to help her because she didn't know all the instruments, and I just knew a few. And so I helped her, and then she would talk about commuting. She would take me, and Mary said, how did she get to go in that car by herself? I said, I don't know, because we had to travel in twos. And she'd take me to St. Raphael's, from St. Francis to St. Raphael's, and I would teach a few piano lessons, and the music room was right off of the gallery, we called it then. And then I taught the 8th grade how to sing the funeral in Latin, because they didn't know the Latin words and they didn't know the tune. So that was my job, to teach piano and to teach the Dies Irae, the Requiem in Latin. And I learned, you know, the kids then, and some of those, well, the one who's still at he's still at St. X. What is his name? Hubbock. He was one of them. It was in 8th grade. Carney Hubbock. And I was at St. Helens 2 years then. Trying to practice the trombone, and I slid and forgot I had my bonnet on, my bonnet flying. And then I was sent to Columbia, South Carolina, to St. Peter's and to Cardinal Newman High School, and I taught band there. I was only there 1 year, but I had the band and I had a choir in the high school. And then I came back to, and I was going to Our Lady of Lourdes, and I had to live at the Mother House. We commuted. And then they built a convent, which is now the parish center, and I got to pick my room and everything. And we moved in, it was June the 9th, I remember the date. School bus took us all out, and got in my room at 6 o'clock that night. I got a call that I was supposed to go to St. Teresa, because they had a band there, and this sister that was supposed to go would not go. So I had to pack up my stuff and go, and she was afraid of the pastor, and he died the day before I came. But it's interesting that when I went back to Lourdes to work, you know, before I retired now, I was in the parish center, and I saw where my room was, but it was converted into an office. So then from there, after St. Teresa, I went to St. Mary in Jackson, Mississippi, and I was there 5 years, and that's the story I told you. The pastor came up here. He loved the way I taught the singing. We had a beautiful choir, children's choir. Then it wasn't adults, it was mostly children doing things. And then when I got an obedience to come home, he drove all the way to Louisville by himself to ask, and these little old superiors were walking with their hands in their, you know, as they walked with their hands in their sleeves, and the little zealotress said, well, he didn't get you anyway, did he? And I said, what you mean? Then she told me, she said, you know, Monsignor Quinn was up here trying to get you to stay. I didn't know a thing about it. So I said, oh, I didn't know that. But I was at the model school then, and I was there for 7 years, and that was my most professional teaching that I did because of student teaching and operettas 2 times a year, one in the winter and one in the spring. And I worked with a ballet teacher, and the sisters helped me. Then from the model school, I went to St. Raphael's. My first obedience was that I would stay at the model school and try to teach at the music school. They were just starting that. Serena was starting that. And I said, yes, I can do that because I don't have that many pupils here. I hadn't built up a clientele, and I was used to having like 60 or 70, and I had like 25. But it wasn't enough to occupy me. I used to fix people's blackboards. I'd go over and do all kinds of things for people, you know. And because I like to work. I used to go down in the kitchen and help in the kitchen too, you know, vegetables and washing the dishes. I just like to be around people. Mother Superior called me and said, Sister, I'm not sending you to model school, I'm sending you to St. Raphael's to clean up the place. And she said, all the sisters are gone except 2. That was Anne Mary and Victor. And she said, I want you to go there and clean it up. So I packed it and I was going to clean it up. I didn't know how I was going to clean it up. And I told you about that silent walk to the bank. Supposed to be a co-signer since I was called the superior. And we walked to the bank in total silence. She didn't talk to me at all. Anne Mary didn't say a word. Perfect silence. Signed the paper. Perfect silence all the way back. And so we started doing things, and we were going to have like little retreat weekends, etc. But Anne Mary was always the one that was prompting it. So I didn't do a thing. She did all the cleaning up. And she was the one that wouldn't talk to me, you know. And she did everything. She did so many wonderful things for that house, you know, to bring us together. But I guess that had not been recognized by other people. They didn't want that. They all wanted to be, that we called it the House of Wings, because it had this wing and that wing and this wing. And I told you the wing I lived in, Jean Ann lived in that one. I had to go in every morning. I literally stood her up on her feet so she'd get to Bellarmine, because they sent young sisters to live with us because we became an ideal community, all because of Anne Mary. And then it was after St. Raphael's that we went to St. Mary's in Bullitt County. And we were there 11 years, and I guess that was the most wonderful years I had because it used all my talents. You know, we did prayer services, we did the liturgies for the adults, we did the they sent us parish ministry, family ministries, and we prepared all of them. We worked with the teachers. We divided the teachers between the 2 of us, worked with them, and then had religious ed 3 nights a week in the building. And the building, all we had was tables and chairs, all open space. And then when Father Mills came there, he fixed a place in the back, had sliding doors, which helped. And but that was wonderful. And then we had prayer services, and I would do the music for them, and Anne Mary would do the other part. She'd be in one room, and I'd be in the other. And I did all the typing, it was just wonderful, you know, what we had. We did a lot of pastoral ministry. We visited the homes, and Bullitt County was out a lot in bad weather. And when we visit the homes, we saw why, because they had all these winding streets, you know, narrow. I learned how to drive. my family was not a family of drivers. I had one brother who had a car, and then finally the second brother got a car. But one brother never did. He rode a bicycle all the time. And he was my last brother that died. But I was so proud of myself because when I was elected to the council, Ann Mary said, you learn to drive or you don't take that job. Because I had to go out from Bullitt County all the way to the mother house for me. So I took lessons from the guy at, I've forgotten his name, at Sacred Heart. I took driver's ed and learned how. And then Ann Mary taught me out of St. Mary's. And then I became a good driver. And only had one accident, and it wasn't my fault. It was a rear end. But the policeman said, sister, the next time, just go through that yellow light. I stopped, and the person rear-ended me. And it was her second one in 1 week. So, but anyway, that I was proud of because it was something our family wasn't good at. After Bullitt County, we went to Father Timmel at St. Helens, and we were there for 2 years. Ann Mary was the vocation director, and I was on the council. And so she was away a lot, but she took care of the liturgy and I took care of the music. And we had Father Timmel, and that's when we renovated the church. The service was beautiful, and we, the two of us, developed the service. When I went to Our Lady of Lourdes, that was the first thing Father Oz said. And he invited me. He called me up one day when I was at a council meeting, and then he says, Antonine, I really want you to come because we're going to renovate the church. I said, oh, not again. I said, I've just been through that. But then I was on the committee for renovating the church at Lourdes. And the interesting thing was, we had the same architect. I can't say his name right now, but the same architect was at St. Helens, was the one for Our Lady of Lourdes. And it breaks my heart when I go to Lourdes and see them tear down things that were fixed. He had a craving for wood. It was beautiful what he did, but they've done away with a lot of it, and that's hard to see. But I know it happens everywhere. They would come into my office, and talk, and they said, sister, could you tell me that? And I would always tell them they had to have an understanding heart to accept these things. And I understood that they, didn't want it done. But, and then I had a lot of, the thing I did not, I had to plan weddings with people. And you know what that's like. And if mother came along, it was worse. You were planning mother's wedding instead of the daughter's. And to this day, I pray every night for a mother who came. Her daughter was living in New York, and her name is Mara Fennell. David and Mara Fennell. I pray for them every night. And she never has forgotten. And she planned it with me. And it was a lot of classical music. They had a good sense of music. And her husband had a lung transplant. And Judy brought the new picture thing for us to look at. And they're still in there. And I pray for them every night and their family. Because Dak, her husband, used to lecture with Ann Mary. And he always liked Ann Mary because Ann Mary would tell him what he did wrong. And he liked her expression she had. And She was a lector, but she can't lecture now. But anyway, Elizabeth was the daughter, and she had little children. We met them in church, and but that's a connection with them. And I have a little litany that I say every night. It's called my Family Friend Litany. I pray for all my nephews, and I say them all by name. That's how, instead of counting sheep, that's what I do. I go through all of them and their families. Then when I get to the friends, I start with David and Mara, and I go through all the friends. And I have a lot of friends from Lourdes, used to sing in the choir. I pray for their families, and they send me pictures of their families every Christmas to keep up with the children. Then I worked at Project Women. Sister Helen and I used to go and help with the mailings, and then her secretary quit, so then she made me do her things. I learned the computer and wrote letters and envelopes, etc. And my minor at Ursuline College was English, so writing letters was easy for me. Not so easy for Anne Mary. And then I worked at Marion Home in the office. I enjoyed that very much. It was very good. And I learned the people that came in to answer the phone out. You know, we became buddies. And they would come in and greet me, and I would go out and greet them. And then I got to see the sisters. And then eventually my brother, a double amputee, was brought in, so I got to eat lunch with him every day. I was over in the corner with the typewriter, and I typed all kinds of things, whatever it was Assumpta first, and then it was Kim Thieneman. And I did all their reports, typed them. And I worked with Barbara O'Connell. Barbara was their secretary, and she'd give me work to do. And we worked really well together. But I enjoyed that very much. And it was all volunteer, because Assumpta said, would you like to be paid or volunteer? I said, no, volunteer, because then I have a little more freedom. But I never took advantage of it. My main ministry is supposed to be prayer, but sometimes I forget that. I was on the council 3 times. I had 3 different superiors: Mary Lavinia, Angelise, and Rosella. And during Mary Lavinia's time, that's when we had the fire. And I got a call the morning of the fire to tell me about it, that the Mother House was on fire. And I had already been elected to the council, but had not taken, position yet. I said, wonder why they're calling me. And Mary said, well, you're going to be on the council that has to take care of this. That's why they're calling you. And we went out that afternoon to help, and some of their spoons were still in their cereal, and we helped clean up the place we could. And so that the 4 years with Mary Lavinia were mainly carrying these crazy architect plans around with Lewis and Henry. We were forever, trying to get, and that's when Marion Home was developed. To find a place for our sisters and our offices were at the AB, which is the model school now. And we had, my first year, Rosemary Nevy and I shared an office. Imagine a council sharing an office. And then we got 2 offices the next time. And then the third time Janet Marie was in one, and I was in the other. We were on the council with Rosella. And that's when we started with the schools. So we interviewed presidents of the school, and Mel Kubander, we chose him. He was from Singapore. We chose him as the president of our schools, and then we interviewed women to be the principal of Sacred Heart, and that's when our sisters were taken out of the schools, out of principalship. That actually was the beginning of our school system that we have now. One time we got to go to Canada, and she came in and she said, I don't know if you're a liability or an asset, but she said, I get to take you free on the plane because you're a senior citizen. We had more fun. Free drinks and everything. I used to love those drinks. The martini was my favorite. And they knew that at Lourdes. And when when I retired, Father Oz gave me a package, and it had a little twisted glass, a martini glass with ribbons all over it, and then all the contents of a martini. And then Father Miller, he gave me a big bottle of Tanqueray. I said, Father Bill, I said, I knew Tanqueray, but it was a book. We studied that in the novitiate. I said, this isn't a bottle, it's much better. And we studied Tanqueray from cover to cover when we were in the novitiate, you know. That was our book. And I told you we used to play popular songs because I brought a lot of them with me. And after supper at night, we'd go back and sing, and we had so much fun. One night we were singing, Marcy Dotes and Does, little limesy ivy. We were really going at it. And then Bernadine heard that little creak in the door. Mother Florian was coming in. They slid, Mother at your feet is kneel. Mother at your feet is kneel. And she said, oh, that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. She didn't know all the love songs we'd sang. And see, she had worked as a telephone operator, so she had keen hearing, and she could hear that squeak of that door. She'd stand back from us a little bit to warn us. And then I did tell you I was a community organist for many years, and I was a two-footed organist. Not many people do that. People put my name down to play the organ, and Jenny Schaefer would call. You know, she was in charge of funerals, and I'd set up everything for her and fix it with my schedule at Lourdes so I could play. And then when I had that heart attack in 2008, I came down for supper, and here was this little line of sisters, and they said, oh, thank God she's going to get to play for my funeral. I lived here with Sister Helen. I point that because that was her room. She was a wonderful person to live with. She used to sit on the couch, she'd take both feet, swing them up, and every Sunday we'd watch a ball game together. And she always took the Catholic team. I had to take the Protestant team. And then I'd fix a little party pizza and cut up an orange, and I'd bring it in to her and hand it to her. She said, oh, Antonine, this is wonderful. She loved that pizza and that orange. We had so much fun together. She was wonderful. There's still little signs of her around, you know, things that she did. There's a cup that she put milk in. There's still M-I-L-K written on there. And there's a burnt spot on the, she had one of these things that you put in a thing of coffee, water, you know, to heat it. Remember, we used to have those. And she went off and it fell and burnt it. She was so worried. I said, no. I said, nothing to it. I said, look, it's where. So every time I see that spot, I think of her. So she was a good woman. And then she drove. She'd take the cars to get them vetted. She'd get in any car, you know, didn't make any difference. And she had a little Omni that she drove. I was 8 years old. 8 years old, and my uncle came. He drove a bus, the city bus, and he came. The water was coming up from down the street. You could see it coming up, and we all got in the bus. My dad put everything up to try to save stuff, and we all went to my brother's, and he had only been married 12 days, and we were in a little apartment, and 3 of us slept in a broom closet, and Mom and Dad had a bed, and then my brothers were down at the flood to keep the squatters from coming into the house. And we lost everything. It went over 5 feet in our house, went out a window. We had little windows up at the top, went out the window, and we lost everything. The Red Cross came to our rescue. My dad made a hole in the ground outside, and he'd cook the meal and bring it in to Mom. And we had a lantern, that's how we saw. And when they were able to get things dry. The Red Cross was wonderful to us. And then we were able to stay there, but we had lanterns, and Dad did the cooking, and I don't remember what else. But I know we had to go get typhoid shots at St. Elizabeth's when we were there. And I had my 9th birthday, and my sister-in-law's mother made Jell-O for me, and I thought that was wonderful. I had Jell-O for my birthday. And then for my 94th birthday, I had this beautiful cake. And then here, we had a flood in '97, and I went downstairs and started doing the same thing with the furniture that my dad had done. It brought back all those memories. And we lost everything downstairs. And I slept on a couch up here, and Aunt Mary made a fire, and the other ones were in their bedrooms. And we really had to work hard to redo all of that. And then after that happened, Adam had the basement redone so that water wouldn't come in. And that was, I had to pack up, and I was here with Helen by myself, and she couldn't do it. I had to take all the things off the walls, wrap them up in paper, and put everything up. And then the Jackheimers came in. And he said, "Sister, I think I ought to make you go to the mother house." I said, "No, I'm staying here." And I would work, I had my card table, I'd work on this side of the floor when the Jackheimers were on that side of it. And then when they'd get on this side, I'd take my card table. He was glad I stayed here, though, because he could go on about his work. He knew somebody was here. And then we had to clean all of that up. That was an old rectory, and they rented it to us because the priest wanted to live somewhere else. It was, who's the priest that's out at Bardstown? Terry Bradshaw. And I was very involved. That was our first hospitality house, real house. And we had 4 sisters to live there, and then we had young women to come and live with us. And we had quite a few young women to come there. And I would go over and be in the liturgy committee, and I would lecture, I would be involved with the girls. And that was a wonderful time. We enjoyed that. So there were 4 of us living there. Martha Jacob was one of them, Dolores Kemper, and Helen. Anne Mary invited Helen because she was wonderful with people. And then I was there, and then Anne Mary was there. And Helen and Martha were there at different times because there were only enough for 4. And Dolores lived upstairs with the girl that came, young woman who came. They were just people interested in our community and possible vocations. That's why it was called a hospitality house. That's something I don't have are hobbies. I am the treasurer, I told you that. And I pay all the bills, I take care of the money, I fix a paper for Aunt Mary to go to the bank for me, and then I separate all the money and give her petty cash, and I keep it in my bedroom. And I like to go to tip the service people, the mail person and the Amazon if they come, bring a heavy package in, and Rumpke. And we have a bunch of stuff for Rumpke this week because of last week, you know, with the weather. So I'll go out and I give them a tip. And I enjoy that because I talk to them. And I told you that this one said, "Do you happen to be a Christian?" And I said, "As a matter of fact, I'm a Catholic sister." And I held my cross up. So he says, "I'm a minister." Alex is his name. And I've had different ones through the years. I've had Lamar and John and Evan. And Evan brought his truck one day. He got a new truck. And he came by, "I want you to see my new truck." And then on my birthday, this guy came in and got the trash. No, it was in December. My nephew was here from Richmond to visit me. Hadn't seen him for 4 years. And he came. I went to the door. I said, "Chad, what are you doing here?" He said, "I asked him to let me take this route. I wanted to see if you were still around." So I gave him a tip and talked to him. He was so shocked that I remembered his name. And he used to tell me about Evan, and I learned all their history. But I think talking to them is it's a kind of a hobby to me. I look forward to Thursday to talk to them and to let them know how much I appreciate their. I know last week I gave one that a male person I've never seen, I handed him money to get a hot drink. He said, "I really appreciate that, man." You know, and I hadn't seen him before. He wasn't a regular man. And then one time, I know last year, I tried to give somebody, he said, "I'm not your regular person, ma'am." He said, "You take this back." I said, "No." I said, "You're doing this in all this cold weather. It belongs to you." And so he took it. Taking care of the money is not a job for me. It's more of a hobby because I love working with numbers.